Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 4 of the Overtime Show. Unfortunately, we had a great episode, what was it, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, but audio issues and video issues. So we're going to do a nice, lovely Zoom call today. We're going to talk about the crazy week of football we've just had, playoff contentions and places and standings, and also maybe a little bit about Trevor Lawrence and where he's going to go. So let's just get started with the week of football that we've just had. Jets beating the Rams.
That wasn't part of the plan. That was not part of the plan.
Yeah, Adam Gase doesn't care. He's not going to be there next year. He might as well screw it up for them. Probably gives him a better chance of staying.
Oh, yeah, not true. I mean, I actually was listening to, I think it was Shannon Sharp last week, and he was saying, although everybody in the organization wants to lose 16 games, trust me, the players don't. And that just screamed of it yesterday. It was, players are embarrassed if they go 0-16.
Well, I mean, that's the Rams, attempt at the NFC West kind of gone now. They were in contention with the Seahawks and now losing to the Jets. They're just, that's playoff kind of ruined.
Oh, no, trust me, they can still beat us. I am probably one of the least confident 10-win teams there's been around. I love my Seattle Seahawks. I think the defense is really playing better, but the Rams still have a chance. They can get your quarterback, and they will take away DK Metcalf. So when they play us, I think it's either next week or the week after, they're going to come up here, and it's going to be a really tough game. I wouldn't be shocked if they still won that game, to be honest, and win the division.
How fun would that be if it was down to the last game for the division? That would be nice and juicy.
Yeah,
Mitchell, every game I've watched with Seattle this year, it has come down to the last second as to whether or not we win or lose. I think I don't want the division to come down to the last second of my season before the playoffs even begin. My heart can't take any more.
No, I know it's been rough. We'll also brush over the Broncos as well. Absolutely blown out by the Bills.
Hey, the first half we looked. It was fine. It ended there. Let's get rid of Drew Lock. Get rid of John Elway. I'm done with them. Get rid of Pat Shurmur, our offensive coordinator. I'm done.
Yeah.
To be fair, 21-13 at halftime is not the worst score in the world against the Bills. To then give up 17 in the third quarter alone is that's frightening. That doesn't sound like a very bad football team.
I mean, a lot of the pieces are there. I'm not actually that down on the team, and at this point, I'm like, you know what? We might as well get as high a draft pick as possible. So I don't care. Let's put Kendall Hinton back in at quarterback for all I care.
Yeah, you want to go 5-11 and get that, probably about number 6 or 7 pick.
I know we can't even suck bad enough, but I mean, we'll see. There's a lot of dumb teams at the top that will probably draft stupid people, and then we'll get a nice gem there in the top 6 or 7.
Zach Wilson's available. I mean, you could always go get him, but we'll get into that a bit later. We'll talk about Trevor Lawrence, but
yeah. And I'm just gonna go on the Packers. I mean, we start off really well in the first half. I scored 21 points in the first half, and then only 3 points in the second half. When we go on to talk about the MVP race, I think Rodgers is more concerned about just putting 4 good quarters of football together rather than, worrying about the MVP race for him. I mean, the Packers are just, I don't know, the defense was better, but we're just not consistent. Like I said to you guys last time we spoke, it's just, I can't watch them and be confident about what's going to happen.
Yeah, what worries me is Aaron Jones nearly has 150 yards rushing and a touchdown, and you win by 8 points. If someone had said to you at the start of the game, Joe, Aaron Jones is going to go for nearly 150 yards and get a touchdown, said this game would have been an 8-point game. Especially if it was Packers, is once it gets a little bit tighter, once it gets a little bit more physical football, I think that you start to see the Packers a little bit more of a finesse team. And teams like that don't win in the playoffs. It's the same reason I don't think the Buccaneers are going to go very, very far in the playoffs, is they're a finesse football team.
Yeah, I was actually gonna ask about what you guys think about the Buccaneers this year. They're still trudging along.
You mean Tampa Bay?
Tampa Bay, yeah.
Tampa Bay.
It just took advantage of an embarrassing Atlanta team, and Tom is always going to. He's never, he's going to have these brilliant halves, these brilliant quarters, and he's always going to have some moments where he looks 43. But he is so smart with so many things, he's going to make up for a lot of shortcomings for that team. And that's why I think they could have easily lost 3-4 even more games this season. So they'll be just fine, but there's no way that they're threatening deep in the playoffs. But I will say no one in this NFC really scares me. I don't get the hype around the Saints, and I've been watching every game. So maybe they will go to the NFC Championship, but I will punch myself in the face if Tom Brady gets back into the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think literally the only team you can't poke a hole with is the Chiefs. And even then, you can still poke a hole with them, saying they can't really run the ball very well. Every team has issues, but I think the NFC, each team has a glaring issue. Like the Packers is, you can't play physical football. For me, it's the Saints is, there's too much check down. They can't stretch the field. You know, you're going to play Drew Brees, who's, 11 broken ribs or something like a car crash injury. Like, I mean, I'm sorry, he's going to get smashed the next 2 weeks. You know, I'm sorry, he's not going to make it. Seahawks, we can't protect Russell Wilson. You know, the Rams, if you get the Jared Goff, they turn into an absolute basket case. Like it, you know, every team in the NFC seems to have a glaring issue, and I think it's just going to be fun to see which one of these teams with horrible issues comes out of the NFC, because I think no matter what, you're going to face the Chiefs, because I can't see anybody beating the Chiefs. But
I sure hope that it's the Washington football team. What a joy would that be? I mean, they're going to have a first round home game. It's just going to be, that would be the great for Dwayne Haskins. That's all I wish. A Dwayne Haskins versus Pat Mahomes Super Bowl. How just joyful would that be?
Jumping Alex Smith? No, we don't get Alex Smith in there. If Washington gets into the playoffs, I will secretly root for Alex Smith to win the Super Bowl, because that would be the comeback year of all comeback years, even if he did nothing.
Yeah, I could root for that guy. But in the NFC, it's probably going to be New Orleans. But like you said, normally you just bet on the best quarterback. But I don't think Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers can overcome what's going on with their teams right now.
No, I think you're right. I think the Saints are probably the most complete team in the NFC. But, I mean, that's a very fragile complete. Like, if you can get after Drew Brees, especially if he's not healthy at the minute, I mean, they're in trouble. I mean, as already, I mean, you get any quarterback, they're in trouble, but especially with the Saints, because he's not mobile. So, I mean,
were there any other scores this week that shocked you?
Yeah, the 49ers putting up 33 points against the Cowboys with Nate Mullins. Like, or Nick Mullins, sorry. Like, all I can say is Kyle Shanahan, in my opinion, is a top 3 coach, because it just doesn't seem to matter what quarterback you give him. Like, they are good, and they have lost so many starters, and they are 5-9 with a 4-3 away record. Like, I mean, to me, that is ridiculously impressive. They'll be back next year for sure, unfortunately for me. But
I know we talked about the Jets winning. I think that is the most interesting the thing that happened. But let's not forget about Thursday night football, because it was a highly entertaining game between the Raiders and Chargers that they just kept trying to give away to one another. The late picks and the missed field goals. And yeah, it's the most fun I've had in quite a while. And for the Chargers not to screw it up, that was truly a shock.
Yeah, I'm really liking what Justin Herbert's doing over there. I mean, he was kind of thrust into the position, what was it, like second week of the season, but he's absolutely smashing it, and I'm really happy for him.
I'm not, because that just means there's 2 really good quarterbacks in my division for the next 10 years. And but no, he's been excellent, and everyone who believed in Marcus Mariota, just remember, come on, he's all too human. And it'll be interesting, because the Chargers are going to have to fire Anthony Lynn, so we'll see. But they certainly have a good quarterback to get things started with.
Yeah, I feel sorry for you, Mitch, because you're not winning that division with even the 3rd best quarterback. Like, I feel bad. I feel if you draft Zach Wilson, you really have to hope he's almost like Justin Herbert, like reincarnated in terms of like draft position to actually what you see on the field.
I mean, I actually really like a lot of other pieces that the Broncos have. I don't think quarterback's the only issue, but I think if you put a competent guy in there, look, the Chiefs have so many guys that are there on a discount right now just because they want to be part of that, and they have some weaknesses. So I don't know if the Broncos will ever do better in a 16-game season in the next 5 years, especially, till things sort out. But I'm actually fairly confident that we're not that far away from from competing. And that's the beauty of the NFL, right? Really, no team should be. You should have teams that perennially screw it up.
Well, that was kind of going on to my next point about the Patriots not making the playoffs for the first time in 8 years, losing to the Dolphins as well. So the Patriots, where do they go from here? Is Cam Newton the answer?
No.
He won't be back next year.
No, I wouldn't be shocked if the Patriots. I mean, everyone's saying like about it the minute like the Patriots are going to go for someone like Matt Stafford, and it's just like saying they're like, no. That's far too obvious. Bill Belichick has got something up his sleeve. He's going to bring some quarterback in, and it is going to work. Like a Ryan Tannehill, he'll bring someone like that in, and it is going to work. Trust me. If the Jets move off Sam Darnold, I bet you $1 million the Patriots are interested in taking him in the sweepstakes. Bet you $1 million.
Well, let's just enjoy the moment. Let's just enjoy this moment right now where everyone in Boston can shut up a little bit. Goodness knows why that terrible town has been given so much sports success over the last decade and a half. Please shut up and be quiet for like 10 minutes. I don't want to hear your accent. I don't want to hear about the Red Sox or the Patriots. You guys suck right now. At the beginning of the season, Cam Newton had like one good game and everyone's like, oh, everyone in the NFL just passed over him like idiots and Bill Belichick's a genius. No, Bill Belichick might be a genius, but they suck right now. And it is a beautiful thing to behold. And this is a fully objective take from me. Thank you.
To be fair, like the Patriots, is it not something like 8 of their defensive starters pulled out for COVID? And like, it's not just any guys, like it's guys like, Hightower and all have pulled out this year. So if there was a year to suck for the Patriots, it's definitely this year, because when you've got maybe someone like Sam Darnold, Stafford all coming up on the market, like I think they'll make 1 or 2 moves and they'll be back next year. As bad as the Patriots are, they might still finish the season 8-8. And that, to me, is just that's one of the best seasons ever. I think Belichick's had coaching. If he gets this team to 8-8, like it is a terrible football team. From just watching their offense is so anemic. It is.
Oh, I love
it's
watching
hard to watch.
I love it. I love watching them suffer. I hope Bill Belichick retires.
Yeah, it'll be great for
football.
football.
No, he's not retiring. I can guarantee that he will not retire.
And how about them Browns? 10-4. Baker Mayfield looks like he's cooking. Nick Chubb's cooking.
Yeah, it's just hard to. It's hard for anyone to convince me that they're going to do it in like a gritty playoff game, because still mistake prone. But I enjoy watching them. I think they've had a pretty easy back half of their schedule here, and so they're going to end up in a good spot. And I would rather root for them over a bunch of the other teams that are going to make the playoffs. So more power to you. If I was playing fantasy football this year, Chubb's my guy. So good for him.
Yeah.
I think what impressed me was Chubb only had, it was a 50 yards rushing last night on 15 carries. So like, you can tell the Giants were still, anytime they were still playing to defend the run, but Baker Mayfield had to pick the defense apart, because you're getting a lot of one-on-one looks, and you still have to beat the defense. And they go 27-32 for nearly 300 yards. I thought he looked impressive, but it's the same thing with Baker Mayfield. Is if you've got one on the outside, he looks great. If all of a sudden people start rushing 4 and start dropping the defense back, he looks bad. It's I'm still not convinced on him. If I was the Browns, I would not be taking up that 5th-year option. But I mean, hey, look, they're going to make the playoffs, and it's going to be fun to see the Browns in the playoffs.
Where would you go from there then, if you're not giving him the 5th-year option? What are the Browns going to do?
Well, I mean, the thing is, like, I always thought Sam Darnold was the best quarterback in that draft, and I'm still convinced, like, if he went to a decent team, he would look 10 times better than what he does right now. But I don't even think you need like a really good quarterback to have this team playing successful. Like, who would you rather have, Matt Stafford or Baker Mayfield? I'd rather have Matt Stafford. And you think about it, like all those years in Detroit with a pretty average offense and a pretty average defense, like you give him this team, I think it would go a lot of places. But the problem for the Browns is you probably really do need that top end quarterback to win nowadays, because there's just that many good quarterbacks and they're going to make that many great plays. To get that top end quarterback is virtually impossible. So like, I'm aggressive when it comes to like team management. I would swing and keep swinging until you hit. And I think there's better than Baker Mayfield, so I would always look to improve that. But yeah, something like Matt Stafford probably would be the guy I'd be targeting.
Do you guys agree with when people say that Baker Mayfield's a bit complacent with the team that he's got, and he's a bit complacent with his ability, and he's not playing he could be much better. But he maybe he's given off this vibe that he just doesn't really love football anymore. I've seen some people talking about that. What do you guys think about that?
Kind of depends who's saying it. I think that is such a tough thing when you're not, seeing what he's doing behind closed doors as a leader and progressing to make himself better. Because I will say the only thing you can take from what we do see of him is that he's a competitor. So it would kind of be surprising to me if he wanted to win that badly, but was that uninvested in the game, because he's going to take a massive hit to his pride if he doesn't get this next contract. And I would think even if he's there for the money, then at that point you have to self-improve yourself to pick up that second contract so that you get that money. So I would say that sounds a bit overblown, but he's clearly got an ego, which you're gonna have to in that job. But I don't know. It kind of depends who's saying it. If I would believe anything like that.
Yeah, like I mean, like, can it hurt to tell him we're not picking up your 5th-year option at the minute, just to see what he would play like in the final year of that contract? Like, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world to see what his max ability would be when he's really under pressure to perform. Because at the end of the day, like, if you're in the final year of your contract and they're saying, look, we're not going to give you the 5th-year option, that's $20 million, you put him under mass pressure. And I would say that's similar pressure to what you would face in the playoffs. You have to perform every week. And I think you would really see as to whether or not he's your franchise quarterback. But, it depends. Like, I don't see I see Baker Mayfield as a glorified game manager. So I think the ceiling for Baker Mayfield is pretty much what it is at the minute. And I don't see the superstar potential that everyone thought he had at Oklahoma.
I don't see superstar potential, but he has some game-making moments. And if he can just limit the mistakes, and if you said a game maker with a few of those big plays, then if he becomes more consistent, I think he's fine. I would actually say I would put money on it that he will be the starting quarterback for the Browns next year. They're going to win 11 or 12 games. And if they win a playoff game, I don't see any reason. There's so much to improve around him still. And if he's cheap in that 5th year, I don't see why they don't bring him back. But there is going to be a quarterback carousel, and there are at least 4 college quarterbacks coming into the league that people kind of expect to play right away. So if the Browns decide, let's just take another swing now, then they can do that. But they've had so much inconsistency over the last 2 decades. I really think they're going to stick with what they've got.
Well, if you had a bit of money on, I do think they take Baker Mayfield, silly for the fact they've had a quarterback carousel for the last decade. So I wouldn't be shocked. I do think they'll take up the option on him. I'm just saying that I think there are better guys out there, but I don't blame the Browns if they take up as an option.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree that there are definitely people that can come in and start straight away. But I think the whole kind of mantra about Baker Mayfield is that he loves to be the underdog, and he loves to be the guy that everyone doubts, and I'm going to prove everyone wrong. So maybe if he doesn't get that 5th-year option, or if they say that they're not planning on giving it to him, maybe that'll, like you've been saying, like ignite that kind of fire that he needs to continue to prove people wrong. Because I think you can't be an underdog if you're the number 1 overall pick. If you're still the starting quarterback, you're not really an underdog anymore. So I think maybe he needs that kind of storyline to keep with that kind of mindset that he's got. But we'll just have to wait and see, I think. But the NFL is interesting now. It's getting interesting. It's not just the Patriots destroying.
Yeah, like I mean, for Baker, like Baker has the same mindset Brady has of like, oh, I'm an underdog, I was overlooked. And like, you're right. Like, once you're the first overall pick, it's like, no, Baker, you're not. Like, everyone recognized, maybe actually overvalued your talent. So yeah, I think you need to almost give him bulletin board material to sit and say like, oh yeah, you're not actually as good as we thought you were. And then you can turn around, oh yeah, well, watch this. I'm Baker Mayfield. I'm a 2-time walk-on. I'm a Heisman winner. And that's, I think, when you get the best out of him, when all of a sudden everyone starts firing at him left, right, and center. Yeah. When things are going good, I don't think you get the best out of him. But
so we'll move on to the MVP race. Who do you guys have as your top 3 MVPs? Can be quarterbacks or non-quarterbacks. It's up to you.
Number 1, Kermit the Frog, also known as Pat Mahomes. I listened to him last night when he was getting interviewed by Tracy Wolfson, and I just sat there and I was just like, it just sounds like Kermit the Frog.
Yeah, he does.
But so much. Yeah, I mean, can we all just agree it's Pat Mahomes?
I mean, I'd like to say Aaron Rodgers just to be annoying, but
like, if you want to put Aaron Rodgers in your top 3, you can. But
I'm going to put him as number 1 just to be that guy.
Okay, well, you're wrong, but that's okay. That's
He
what
had
you're
one
right.
bad week. One bad week.
No, I mean, I just don't think he's playing otherworldly at the moment, and Patrick Mahomes' existence is otherworldly for right now. And we've seen Aaron Rodgers do better. If I were going to put anyone second, and if we were going to do the MVP as the most valuable over, it's clearly really the most outstanding player, I think Josh Allen has a claim to it. Not just because he just crushed the Broncos. I think that dude has gotten so much better and is so much fun to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, like when people, like what annoys me is when people are like, "Oh, Josh Allen's going to turn the ball over," like the odd time. They're like, "Yeah, he's a gunslinger and he's really good at it. Like he's gonna risk it for the biscuit." It's like, I'm agree with you, Mitch. Like everyone sits there and goes, "Oh, they're really well coached. They're really well." You sit and watch the Bills, and you're like, the Bills look fantastic when Josh Allen's playing really well. When Josh Allen plays good, the Bills don't look as good, and that tells me they're a lot more quarterback centric than what people like. Like he threw for 360 yards yesterday, or Saturday.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like people just look at that and they just go, "Oh yeah, well the Broncos are a bad team." Nearly threw for 400 yards. Like
And
that is
the Broncos
hard to
defense
do.
has actually played pretty well. They held the Chiefs down pretty well last week, so it's not like they're complete trash and they're still missing our top 3 corners, one of our top safeties, and Von Miller. So he did it against a decent team, but
Yeah, and he also did it at Mile High, like Mile High in terms of like environmental, like one of the toughest environments probably to play football, and he still nearly threw it for 400 yards. Like, yeah, I agree with you. I would probably have him number 3, just because I do think Rodgers is the big reason the Packers are 11-3, but he's definitely top 3 candidate. I think he gets so much disrespect, it's unbelievable.
Who are some non-quarterback MVP options? Look, a quarterback's going to win it. I mean, you have to have an incredible out-of-your-mind season to change that. I think it's been since 2012 when Adrian Peterson won it. That was the last time. But if you had to nominate some other players, who would they be?
Derrick Henry, probably.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, he is probably the entirety of that Titans offense. I mean, well, not the entirety, but he's a big part of it.
I mean, to be fair to Ryan Tannehill, there are some times where they hand him the keys to the car, and he does do a really good job of it. He's played pretty well. It's just if you can shut down the run, then you really have a good chance to beat the Titans. But yeah, Derrick Henry's been an absolute beast for the last 3 seasons now.
Yeah,
so he's been phenomenal.
Also put Dalvin Cook there as well. Dalvin Cook's been playing unbelievable football this season. I think he's been, like, even just for fantasy numbers, he's been putting up huge numbers every week. So he's probably the second guy I'd have on there.
Someone else actually I want to give a real shout out to, Xavier Howard at the Dolphins. 9 interceptions this season. He's been an absolute lockdown on one side of the ball. I mean, as has Jalen Ramsey. Like Jalen Ramsey has shut. The reason Jalen Ramsey doesn't get so many interceptions is because people don't target him. So him and Xavier Howard, I think, are the 2 best corners in football right now, and they just shut one side of the field down. He has had a phenomenal season for Miami.
One other person I'd like to talk about as well is Stefon Diggs. He obviously expressed his dislove at being at Minnesota. Saying that he wanted to be the star receiver, and he's gone to the Bills now, and I think he's helped Josh Allen a lot to put up the numbers that he has. And wide receiver has never won the MVP, so maybe there's talk about Stefon Diggs being up there as well.
No. Was it?
He's good.
1,300 receiving yards or something this season?
Yeah. I'm liking Stefon Diggs, and I'm liking that he talked the talk and he's actually backed it up. And I love it when people do that.
I think what's interesting is because we've clearly, we used to be in an era of running backs being the biggest stars in the NFL. Quarterbacks were kind of in their own league always, but now wide receivers have caught up, if not surpassed, running backs in a lot of ways. There's very few backs we see as special and important, whereas that's kind of become what the receivers are. But because wide receivers are, of course, directly linked to the performance of a quarterback, even if we're in the age of the wide receiver compared to the age of the running back, we're probably never going to see a wide receiver recognized in that way, which, that kind of sucks, because it's like if they're with a good quarterback, the quarterback's going to get credit. If they're with a mediocre quarterback and they do great, it's like, Well, that's all that quarterback can do. And, there's only so much a receiver can do to be a game changer without. So I do think we need to give shout out to the best receivers because they will not get some of the benefit that they should.
Yeah, like when everyone says to be a great team, you have to run the ball to suck the defense in. I kind of and go, well, why can't I have two receivers who are really good who can stretch the field, and that opens it up another way. And when you look at what Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill, I know Travis Kelce's a tight end, but when you look to see what they do and that track team of receivers at the Chiefs, they completely open up the field. And everyone used to say your wide receiver was the icing on the cake, it was the guy you didn't really need, but it was nice if you had him. I think you're right, Mitch. I think you need a top receiver nowadays to be able to actually to get deep into the postseason, because you need somebody else to be a focal point for defenses to target rather than just a good run game and a good quarterback. If you've DeAndre Hopkins on your field, he's getting double teamed, potentially triple teamed. That is going to open up so many avenues for you to go through. So, yeah, I think the wide receiver nowadays doesn't get the love that they really should do, because everyone just turns around and says it's a diva position.
Yeah. So, other than Xavier Howard, what other defensive players do you see maybe scratching on the MVP board?
TJ Watt.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It's got to be a Steeler on there, right?
Yeah,
Aaron Donald. Oh, we can keep going back to TJ Watt.
Aaron Donald has been that good for so long. I think everyone just gets numbed by the fact he's so good. He's nearly had 13 sacks this year, and nobody talks about it because it's just standard Aaron Donald. He has phenomenal years, and they're just the same year for Aaron Donald. It's just everyone's got used to it now, and it's kind of sad because I think is it Hassan Reddick has 11 sacks on the year, and everyone was saying about what a great season he had and one of the best players in the league. And you're like, Aaron Donald still has a half a sack more than 1.5 sacks more than you. Yeah, and he's a defensive tackle. He's in the middle of the line. They're not supposed to sack the quarterback 12 times. So.
Yeah, it's just he's a clip machine, that guy. And you see him with 200-300-pound linemen on each arm and just tossing them around like they're nothing. He's an absolute freak of nature, that guy. What about Myles Garrett? What do you guys think of Myles Garrett? He's probably one of my favorite defensive players.
Yeah, he's been spectacular as well. I think whatever you say for the Browns, I mean, they've held some teams back, and he's made game-changing plays. He's who can I even compare him to? He's just the kind of guy who's going to make a couple of game breakers in a season that can literally change the trajectory of everything that you're doing. And obviously he had disciplinary issues and stuff, and so to see him come back and just do his thing has been really
fun. And Jeremy, what do you think of Let Russ Cook? What's your opinion on that?
Let Russ cook, but let's give him a sous chef or two. Essentially, don't get me wrong, I love just watching Russ just sling it with those moon balls where you're like, where is this going? This is going out of bounds. Oh no, there's DJ Moore right on the touchline. What a catch. Don't get me wrong, it's fun to see him as a highlight reel, but I realize we are at our best when he throws for realistically somewhere around 200 yards. That's when we are our destructive best. You need the run game to make the constant little tiny cuts, and then Russ just hit you with a gash. That is effectively what we try and do. And let him sling it a bit more than normal. I trust him more than I do our run game, especially with DK Metcalf. But yeah, just let's rein it back in a little bit. You can't win MVP now. Let's just rein it back in and defend December football. Run the ball time. You don't turn the ball over, please. Stop forcing it.
Do you think maybe it's been on his mind? Do you think maybe that's why he's?
Oh yeah, 100%. The reason I think Aaron Rodgers is fine and not chasing MVP numbers is because he has won one. I think if you haven't won one and you're Russ's age now and you've played as well as he's played and you've carried an anemic offense for 2 years, we really were bad on the offensive side of football. We were horrible to watch, and he carried us to the playoffs. I do think it does play on his mind. You can't tell me that Buffalo game that especially he wasn't sitting there going, I can absolutely throw this all over the yard, put up massive amount of numbers because these guys can't stop me. And then next thing you know, it's pick, and then you're in real trouble. So it plays on his mind. I think if he was playing for the Chiefs, he would win it easily. It's just with Pete Carroll, it's very much so. I'm not going to turn. I really don't want us to turn the ball over because I really don't want this to be more than a one-score game at any point. So I think it's been on his mind. I think he gave up on it probably about 4 weeks ago. He gave up on it, and it's no coincidence that we have looked a lot more solid, especially defensively, now that he's not really chasing MVP numbers.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll move on to the final topic of today, the 2021 NFL mock draft. So with the Jaguars now losing 13 games in a row, are they favorites to pick up Trevor Lawrence this year?
It's just so funny to me. Just anytime someone says, like, in the NFL, they've lost 13 games in a row, but they're happy. It's just, it always just hits you. I'm just like, it's just so different to UK sport. But no, I feel sorry for Trevor Lawrence because you're going to go to either one or you're either going to put it this way, you're going to go to two bad organizations. You can go to one that will give you a suntan, or you'll go to one that you'll need a fur coat. Take your pick. It's. Yeah, I feel bad for him. I just picked the Jets because it's in New York. That's literally it.
I do think that the Jets have, the Jaguars actually have the better setup. They have a couple of key pieces. They have more solid picks that would come up behind him. They're going to put new management in. Florida's nice weather, if not full of crazy people. And I think they technically have the tiebreaker right now. So it'll be very interesting to see if either of those teams wins a game. Because like you said, like now that the fully defeated season is not on the table, it's such a conundrum. Like if you're a coach, you kind of need to fight because you might get fired regardless. But if you're a defensive end, you're going to be there next year and you're better off with a new coach and a new quarterback. Are you kind of motivated to tank? And while relegation would, I do want it for MLS, it would just never work in American football or basketball or baseball. It just does not make sense. And that does suck because then you have to deal with the tanking issue. I do wonder if the NFL will try and adopt some sort of lottery or make there some sort of issue with teams really seeming to tank. But if I'm Trevor Lawrence, look, you were anointed your sophomore year that you were going to come in. He's been the highest touted quarterback to come out, the most sure thing since Andrew Luck. If I'm him, you also don't want to look like a jerk. Like when a couple quarterbacks came out, they refused to go to certain organizations. John Elway did it. And that's why he got drafted by the Baltimore Colts and traded to the Broncos right away. He's not going to want that diva label. I think he's going to go in and try and do what so many quarterbacks have tried to do at both of those organizations. But I would like to think he's going to be better than all the Blake Bortles and Sam Darnolds. By the way, I'm not writing off Sam Darnold, but clearly he's not, the Jets are not going to just stick with him. So Trevor Lawrence, you're a little bit screwed, but I think you're going to end up in Florida, and I don't think it's actually the worst situation in the world.
No, like if you were the NFL, like you ideally, if you had the pick between Jacksonville and the Jets, who would you rather have to get Trevor Lawrence and go up? It would be the Jets because it's a major market. But yeah. I like you
from a marketing standpoint. But if you're Trevor Lawrence, I don't know if he wants to be like the star in the big city,
No, and he doesn't come across as Trevor Lawrence comes across as like a really chilled out, quite mellow guy. He's like he doesn't want the spotlight. It doesn't bother him that he has it, but at the same time he's like, it is what it is. But like I agree with you. Like Jacksonville's got some really nice pieces. Like James Robinson has been phenomenal this year.
Oh, fantastic.
I'm not sure whether that's because they've been overfeeding him the ball, if you know what I mean. So like his stats look really good because he's had the ball more than he normally would if you have a good quarterback. I'm still not sure. I still think he's a good player. I don't know if he's a 1,000-yard rusher if you have Trevor Lawrence, but I do think he's a very nice piece to have. I think their problem's just going to be like weapons on the outside. Like that was their problem when they had who was the quarterback during their playoff run? Blake Bortles. Their problem was you had D.D. Westbrook, and I think you had Robinson, who's now with the Bears. At the time, I just always thought they lacked some weapons on the outside, and like they really do lack that now. So my question is, can you get somebody like? I mean, you're not going to get a D-Hop, like, because there's nobody stupid enough to trade away someone that good. But could you maybe go to the Cowboys and say, here, we'll take one of your receivers from you, to get them down over here, but we'll give you some picks. Whatever team drafts Trevor Lawrence, you're going to have to put weapons around him. And I don't trust either organization to do that.
So if we assume that Jacksonville are going to get the first pick and take Trevor Lawrence, if the Jets are second, do you think they would be sensible enough to take someone like Penei Sewell, or are they going to take Justin Fields?
I think Justin Fields is going to get drafted in the top 3. I would be very curious if whoever ends up with the second pick doesn't try and leverage it to just drop down to maybe 4 or 5 and get something really juicy out of another team desperate to trade up.
Okay.
But what other team? The Broncos maybe would be desperate to trade up.
We don't have anything to trade. We're going to take whoever's
player. I mean, that's one thing. I mean, the one thing the Jets do have is a lot of cap space. So you could trade a player or two, but yeah, if I was the Jets, I would genuinely look at it and go, is the difference between Sam Darnold and Justin Fields that big that I would really need to draft Justin Fields? And then if you do draft him, you're going to have to move Sam Darnold on and try and get something for him. And I always say, I'm sort of going, the gap isn't big enough between the two of them that I would pick Justin Fields. So I would trade that number 2 pick and try and get something for Sam Darnold. Like, it's just a mess. I mean, even if you go to the Jets, if they don't fire Adam Gase, like it's over before it even begins. So, I don't trust the Jets, even if they do fire Adam Gase, to go and get somebody good. I mean, if it was me, Urban Meyer would be one of the first people I call. But no, I think they'll probably go for the next Freddie K, and that's probably who you'll see on the headset, the sidelines.
So
I can't believe that.
If we're assuming that the Broncos are going to be like around a 12, 13, 14 pick, do you have any ideas, Mitchell, who they're going to look to take, maybe trade up?
I wish I follow every Broncos insider, whatever there is, and it seems like the Broncos are still really open to letting Locke develop, and they were comparing him to Josh Allen because, look, the first 2.5, 3 years of Josh Allen, the bright spots were bright and brighter than what Locke has shown. But now that he's turned into this, obviously Locke is not a runner like him, but he has a lot of other similar traits. They're like, maybe we need to stop trying new quarterbacks and invest in one for a little bit. But I feel like we know, just like we knew about Brock Osweiler, like we even offered him $17 million, which was too high just because he was all right. And we figured we could build around him and then maybe pull him out for someone else. So I don't see the Broncos making a big jump, but would I be surprised if they take, goodness, if they're at pick 12, they're probably looking at the 4th quarterback by then. Who's the third guy that people are talking about, Fields and Trank or something? I don't know. So maybe it is Zach Wilson. That'd be a very odd merging of my families.
Zach Wilson,
yeah, Trask. So I would be shocked if 4 quarterbacks don't go in the top 16. But that happens almost every year. But I don't know if the Broncos are willing to make a leap, because if it came down to it where the cost was just too high, maybe they bring in a Stafford or a Darnold and have him compete with Locke to see if that helps Locke. They do say he's like an insanely competitive guy. He's well liked, but I don't see them overspending. Then again, I want John Elway to be fired, so a GM might come in and I couldn't tell you what the hell he's going to do.
Just to give you guys an idea as well, Jacksonville has 2 first-round picks, which if you were to get a quarterback and then you could maybe move out of the first round and get some more stuff, that is a very nice position to be in. And the Jets as well have 2 first-rounders because they get R1 for Jamal Adams. Yes, again, not bad. But here's the one team, actually, just looking at the draft order while we're talking about it, there's one decent team and they've got 2 first-round picks and one of them's a top 6 pick in Miami. And Miami is either going to do one of 2 things. They're either going to move back and get a lot more stuff to get to help Tagovailoa, or I think they might package it, try and move up and maybe get one of the top players in the draft to help Tua. They're sensible. I think they'd probably move back, but it would not shock me if they were to go up and try and get one of these top players in the draft.
Yeah, I mean, there's some definite big hitters in this draft coming up. There's some
Well,
big
yeah, I mean,
receivers.
they probably will look at that guy, the Oregon tackle.
Nice
Was
all.
it? Yeah, that to me, he's like. Do you remember when he's got Quentin Nelson came out of Notre
Yeah.
Dame?
Yeah.
He's like one of those guys. You're just like, yeah, that'd be great. Just get
Yeah.
him.
Oh, once in a while you have to do that, and you have to trust that it's going to be worth it. But with offensive linemen, it's scary. It's a ballsy pick.
I mean,
The
he was second place in the Heisman vote for alignment. That's
Yeah.
insane.
I mean, as well, but the fact as well, they have the restrictions on like linemen, training linemen basically with contact. Like if you're in the draft, there is a surefire alignment, and he is definitely going to be one. Just go get him. Like you could do that. They could also get somebody like a Devonta Smith out of Alabama.
Mhm.
He's going to be up in that top 5 pick. I think if you're, depending on obviously what you want, it's obviously in a way it's cheap labor. You're not going to have to pay them for a long time. It's better than going out and getting a top player who has a big contract at the minute. So, I mean, they could do that. I just think that offensive lineman is the one that if I was the Dolphins, I would be saying here, take my 6th, take my 22nd. You get, if you're the Jets, you're whoever is the second at the time probably will be the Jets. You move down to 6 and 13, and let's go get that lineman.
I want to bring up one more team that might be in the draft for a quarterback, and that might be, if I were a quarterback coming out, the team I would prefer, and that is the 49ers. I don't know if they are set on bringing back Garoppolo, who's increasingly getting injured and has just not seemed to really be able to put it together. And you got to think that Shanahan knows what he wants, and he knows if it's there or not. I would not be surprised if that is actually a team that comes in and decides to grab a quarterback in the first. And if I'm a college quarterback, I might be quiet and be like, please let me slip to, I think they're 11 right now, or 11 or 12 right now. Like,
yeah,
please let me slip down.
But like, they have the same problem you have in that by that point, like those quarterbacks will be gone. Like presumably Jacksonville Jets take quarterbacks. That's Justin Fields gone. That's Trevor Lawrence gone. Atlanta might take a Zach Wilson, kind of like what the Chargers did last year. There's probably another one gone. Then you get to Detroit. If Detroit's moved on from Matt Stafford, there could be Kyle Trask gone. So by the time it gets to 12, like I think Kyle Trask might be the only one available at 12. And I'm not convinced Kyle Trask is a franchise quarterback. I'm not convinced.
I'm not convinced that Trevor Lawrence is a franchise quarterback. I mean, for every Andrew Luck, I do feel like this is the most confidence we've had in a guy since. There's a lot of guys. I mean, the draft that Josh Allen, Sam Darnold came out of, Rosen, I think, did not get a fair shake, but he didn't show us enough to think that, that is the greatest loss. But otherwise, we got an MVP out of that, and somehow it really doesn't seem like Lamar Jackson is going to be like a long-lasting, high-impact player. So for me, there is no such thing as a sure thing. So really, it comes down to if I'm going to trust one guy to choose a quarterback who maybe wasn't one of those 4 or 5 names, it's going to be Kyle Shanahan. So I'm just saying, I wouldn't be surprised if Garoppolo is also part of that quarterback carousel.
But who's going to take his contract? Like, genuinely, who's going to take that contract with his injury history?
The New York Jets. There's a lot of stupid teams out there.
The Jets, I mean, I'm going to say the Jets are smart for once, and they don't have 3 quarterbacks on the roster. You never know. There are, as you say, a lot of stupid teams. But
it might depend on the coach that they hire. The coach might say, hey, let's move forward with Darnold. Use that pick on there's another lineman coming out of Oregon, a tackle that everyone's really excited about. Like, I just don't trust the Jets to make a smart decision.
No, I do. I actually like Joe Douglas. I think he's done a good job since he's been there. I mean, the other guy who's getting quite a lot of love, who's probably going to be mid first round, is Trey Lance out of North Dakota. Obviously, same places from Josh Allen, isn't it?
No, he's from Wyoming.
Or is that Carson Wentz I'm thinking of?
Yes, yeah.
Carson Wentz, yeah. Like, he's one who's going under the radar a little bit. I mean, the one he's projected to go around about 16. Like, I know you don't want to hear this, Mitch, but New England is in 15.
Damn it.
They are not far off the 49ers position, so they could definitely package some of these picks and move up, because I think Bill Belichick or someone said this year was finally the year that the hens came to roost with their financial cap problems. But so moving on next year is when that really opens up for them. So if they're going to go for a quarterback, they are not far off a top 10 pick, which, you know, if they ended up with a Zach Wilson, I trust Bill Belichick enough that that will be the start of another dynasty.
You know how cursed I would be if I had to, like, I can root against a team and want one player to do well, but that would be it. I would be like, oh, I want Zach Wilson to throw 5 touchdowns and I want the Patriots to lose. And that's just not going to happen. It would really tear me up inside. Like watching Kyle Van Noy win those Super Bowls was like, I mean, look, I've been around Kyle. It's not like he was my favorite BYU player ever, but you want to see, like, I'm from a mid-major university when it comes to college football, so I want to see those guys do well, and we're having a lot of success in the last couple of years. But it just burned my soul to be like, oh, I want this BYU guy to get a Super Bowl, but I hate the Patriots. If it was the quarterback, if it was the freaking quarterback, and I know he would do well there, it would honestly, I would combust. I'd be torn. I'd be Jekyll and Hyde every freaking Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a lot of teams at the minute. I'm like, they're all the same level. Like, something like Washington's like 19th in the draft. Like, they're very close to 8-8. Like, I thought Ron Rivera probably was one of the best hires, quiet best hires made last year.
I agree.
But there's one team actually to sign off for me. There's one team I look at the draft and I think they'll be interested in a quarterback, but they're far too low to get one of these top ones is Indianapolis. And I'd be very interested to see, with Philadelphia having the 7th overall pick, would they be interested in trading Carson Wentz? Or they're going to trade one of them, and I think it's going to be Wentz. So if you're someone like Indianapolis, I think you look at it and you go, when was Wentz at his best? With Frank Reich. What have we got? Really good coaching staff and loads of weapons.
Wentz, something's got to give with his contract because he's too injury prone for anyone. I think he deserves a second chance. I don't know if he'll ever be like, he was like MVP for like 10 games, you know, but the injuries and then the fact that this year he's been healthy or as healthy as we know and just played like absolute trash. Like, that's a puzzling one because I'm intrigued by Wentz. I almost want the Broncos to take him, but for like 1/5 of the price that he's at right now, he's stuck and the Eagles are stuck because I don't think Jalen Hurts is the guy of the future. He's going to have an exciting start, and I promise you, it is going to fade. I can.
Oh yeah, like all these sort of like run first quarterbacks, like it does not work. But I'm convinced the Eagles are going to be like, it's been that bad for so long. Jalen Hurts looks amazing. But Carson Wentz is not going to sit on the bench of that contract. Like they are going to have to move him, and it's just they're in a really stuck position because they're in a position in the draft where you're like, well, if you really wanted a really good quarterback, you can maybe get one. Just trade the 2 you've got. But it's it's a case of it's like who's going to take them. So like if I was, for example, like if they finish, where are they, 7th? If they finish 7th, they could actually finish higher. Say they finish 7th. Say if you went to Indianapolis here, do you want Carson Wentz, better than Phillip Rivers? He was best when he was with Frank Reich. Say they traded that pick, you get the 24th pick. I'm curious, Mitchell, if you did end up doing that and you got the 24th pick and say you had the 7th pick and say Jacksonville takes Trevor Lawrence, do you maybe ring up the Jets and say, how would you like the 7th and the 23rd to let us go to number 2 so we can get Justin Fields? I think that's a dreamland scenario. I don't think it happens.
There would have to be something else involved. I just don't like the price that teams overpay for the top 3 or 4 picks when, again, like there's just so few sure things in the draft. But I think the Colts, like you're onto something there. That is a scenario. I wouldn't be surprised if they pick up a quarterback in say the 3rd round and see what he could become while they give Rivers another year, or they just see how this quarterback carousel goes. And yeah, I'm excited to see which coaches get fired because I think it's going to tell us a lot about who's going to make those big changes.
Yeah, I mean, I think Indianapolis is a spot for a Sam Darnold or Stafford. I do think they will move on from Phillip Rivers because there's sometimes I've watched Phillip Rivers this year and it's just like, ugh. Like when he tries to throw the deep ball, you almost can hear like that tennis noise, like as he just tries to like heave it, and it's really painful to watch. Like watching him and run back and tackle someone, it was just like, Phillip, like you're done. Like
I think you just compared him to Serena, so that's a compliment.
He doesn't have the body of Serena. I'll say that, but he also doesn't have the running ability. I've seen him try and tackle someone. I mean, I think Indianapolis is in a really nice spot, and they're just gonna at 24. You know, they can either take someone, they can move up if they want, but I mean, yeah, I mean, I want Indianapolis to do well. I like what they're doing, and you know, they're one of my more favorite franchises. So hopefully they do well. Hopefully the Cowboys do terrible and pick another wide receiver in the top 10. Like they do every year, because that's clearly what they need.
Well, we're 55 minutes in. We've had a deep conversation about football. There is one last person I want to talk about. Someone I find very interesting is Ian Book for Notre Dame. Someone who's been a quietly very good starter for Notre Dame. I think he's only lost, well, when he lost to Clemson, I think that was his 4th loss in 4 years of being a starter. Do you see him getting drafted, or do you think he's going to be someone who just kind of slips under the radar and people just remember him as being the guy that could have made the national championship, but is unlikely to now?
Yeah, who's the guy, the Washington State quarterback from like a year ago, who everyone thought was pretty decent, was going to go around in the 6th round? What was his name? I can't remember. I think he'll be very similar to that. I think when you listen to a lot, I mean, I listen to a lot of the Fox College sports coverage guys, and like Joel Klatt, and who's the running back who played for USC, who was really
Reggie
good. Reggie Bush. Yeah, those sorts of guys basically are like, when it comes down to it and the game falls on Ian Book's shoulders, you can sort of see it's not fully there. You know, I do think he'll fly under the radar. I do think if a team picks him up, hey, you've got a really good, competent quarterback or backup quarterback for a long time. But no, I don't think he's going to be another one of these Brady ones who gets picked up in the later rounds and turns out to be amazing.
I think he'll go in the 6th or 7th round. I don't have high expectations, just because I think Notre Dame's a Trojan horse most years that it's really successful. They have a really tough time in the end, and that doesn't have to reflect on him. But like you said, I think it has reflected upon him this year, where he that has not necessarily been their great strength. But yeah, he'll probably go in the later rounds. I've seen grades for him as high as 4th or 5th. Maybe some guys have done higher. That's just the highest I've seen. But he is intriguing.
Yeah.
Why not? If you're, why not?
Yeah. I think most of Notre Dame's success just falls on Brian Kelly. I think if you took him out of the equation and plugged in an average head coach, Ian Book looks not that good. So I think he's had the perfect setup with Notre Dame, and he's just been good. So yeah, I would be. I mean, as Mitch says, draft him. It's, in the later rounds. I mean, you're drafting guys that you're swinging at that point. So if you are one of these more middling franchises who maybe has an older quarterback, then why not take a swing, see what happens?
Yeah,
it's later pick. It's not gonna hurt.
Well, those of you who are still here, thank you very much.
Turned into a draft podcast, honestly.
Yeah, thank you.
I cannot wait for the draft podcast. I love the draft. It's so much fun.
We should do like a little live tweet thing about that, and maybe the Super Bowl as well. But anyway, that's another thing. Thank you guys for listening. The next episode will probably be, I'm gonna say, early January. We can say, like, I don't know, 8th or 9th or something like that.
We can do some playoff predictions.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for the next episode. I think we'll have some definite good content coming up in the future, and also we'll try and get some guests on as well again in the new year. But thank you for those of you who've been listening, and we will see you in the next episode.